Hello, everybody, and welcome to Good Vibes FC. I'm Sam Mewis, and I am coming to you back at home, the women's game normal headquarters. I'm in Boston. I flew back from England this morning, and I am about to be all kinds of jet-lagged.
And I'm Lynn Williams, and I'm coming to you from New Jersey, where I seem to always be coming to you from.
A good, stable place to podcast is not a bad thing, Lynn. Trust me on that.
Oh, sorry. It's me. Sam, you're back. I was like, oh.
I'm sorry. I ad-libbed. I'm back. My trip is finally over. I was just in England for 10 days, starting with last weekend at the Manchester Derby, which I covered in depth on last week's episode of Good Vibes with Becky. But after Manchester, I went to visit Christy in London, which was so much fun. I got to see her team, West Ham, play against Brighton, which, Lynn, was like a super physical game. Like, I watched in the stands and it was 0-0 and there were like so many fouls. I feel like it was kind of just one of those games where both teams really need the points and they weren't like creating enough offensively. So they were just kind of like, well, we are just going to hit you then. And I was a little bit taken aback by the physicality, but I'm really glad that I got to go and like support Christy's team.
Yeah, we're like the refs just letting them play on, or...
Yes, the refs were letting them play on. It was like pretty wild. I think there ended up being like 4 or 5 yellow cards, which is kind of a lot,
Ooh.
but like a lot of fouls. And it was just like a few times I was like,
ah.
But you know, when you like go see a game in person, maybe it just seems a little bit more like feisty out there.
I have a question, not to get into this, but do you think now, since your injury and since having not played for a bit, you are more like to physical tackles?
Yes, I 100% think that. I feel like I'm so much more sensitive to tackles and so much more sensitive to like, well, they've got to take her off and protect her because I think I like am so scarred from my own situation that I just want everybody to be safe all the time.
Be safe out there, girls.
I know. But I like overall had the best trip. I have a funny story. I went to 4 games while I was on my trip, which was incredible. One of them was Chelsea's Champions League game against Ajax. That was last week. And I have a really funny story. Do you want to hear it?
Tell me.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
I feel like this like sums up the football culture in England so well. I went down on the pitch before the game to record a video for DAZN, but I was like a little bit late. Like they were already like out doing the anthems or whatever. So the players were like already on the field and the girl from DAZN was just like, just go out, step out and do the video. Like it's fine. And so I stepped out to do the video and a security guard was like, you obviously can't do this. Like the game is about to start, like stop. And the girl from DAZN just goes, oh no, it's fine. She won the World Cup. And the security guard was like, oh, okay. Like he literally had so much like respect that I had won the World Cup that he was just like, yeah, you can like do whatever. And I thought it was like such a funny example of like how much respect they have for football there.
Well, you should start saying that more often. Oh, no, I can get in. I'm Sam Mewis. I won the World Cup.
Oh, yeah, I'm just going to cut the line. It's fine. I won the World Cup.
You should just wear your medal around. That's actually hilarious.
I know.
And also so funny that the girl thought, you know what, this is what I'm going to say to get her on.
I know. Like, she wasn't like, oh, no, she has a media pass. She was like, she's fine. She won the World Cup. And I was like, oh, cool. I thought it was hilarious. But anyways, I had the best trip. I am really happy to be home. I missed Finn literally so much. I feel like I had separation anxiety.
Did he have separation anxiety?
He did have a little bit of separation anxiety. Yes. He stayed with my parents the whole time, which was amazing. But he went through like a little bit of a sad spell, they told me.
Oh, that's actually sad, but also like cute because he missed you guys.
Yeah, it like kept me up all night.
And Pat went with you, right?
Yeah, Pat was with me the whole time. It was really, really fun. We ate a ton of good food. I freaking love Yorkshire pudding so much. Have you ever had one?
No. What is that for everybody who doesn't know?
I've been talking a lot about Yorkshire pudding, but for anybody who doesn't know, it's part of like a roast dinner. When you go and get a roast at a pub and you get like chicken and vegetables and potatoes and you get a Yorkshire pudding, which is like the bread accompaniment, but it's like this light, fluffy, baked/fried bread pastry.
That is like right up your alley. Meat, potatoes, veggies, pastry.
Yorkshire pudding. I know. But enough about me, Lynn. You're injured. Horrible, but you're in New Jersey.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
Good. It's so funny because I'm obviously injured, but like in my head, when I think of injury, I think of like long term, like this, I'm going to be out forever. I'm not. I wish I was playing right now, but I am on the mend.
Yeah, you are.
I hopefully am going to be playing soon. And it's great. You know, me and Marley are here. We just went to an NBA game last night.
Marley's your fiance
Yes.
from Australia.
My lover, if you will.
I will.
Yeah, he's from Australia. We are both here in New York. We went to an NBA game. He did some like content for them. And it was just so fun. I felt like I was just like, bring your spouse to work day. So he was like down on the court getting videos and stuff. And I was just like in the stands eating popcorn and being like, go on.
You're doing great, honey.
I love you so much. You're doing great. Keep
Oh,
going.
that's so fun that you can like go support him and what he's doing like when he supports you at your games all the time.
I know. So it's been really nice and fun to have him here, come home to him. And we've just been like exploring the city. And one of my goals is just like get out into the city more this year, because I feel like last year I didn't do that at all. So having a life friend to do that with is very nice.
A life friend. I love that. Well, it's also like about to be the international window. Do you guys have any days off when the national team players are away?
Yes. So we have 3 days off when they're away. I feel like I haven't had 3 days off in years.
Yeah.
So that's like kind of strange for me. But we're going to go to the Drake concert and then we're going to just chill.
Yes.
I know. Marley loves Drake. He's been here, like he's went to college here. He stayed here, obviously, because I'm here. And he's never gone to Drake. So he's like, we're going. I'm doing it. And then I just so happen to be able to go with him. So we are excited.
Oh my God. I'm so happy for you guys. And I can't
Thank
wait
you.
to like FaceTime you while you're there and just.
I know. This was like one of those times where like, remember I bought those Kevin Hart tickets and I was like, yeah, we're going to be able to go. And then I got called into camp and so you had to go. That was like one of these.
Yeah, Lynn, I do remember that. I was injured. And so I went on a date with Marley to the Kevin Hart show while you were away. And me and Marley just like lived together for a week. It was hilarious.
I know. How funny. That's like literally so funny. Well,
okay.
I get him now.
Okay. Before we get into our regularly scheduled game discussions from this past weekend, we did want to discuss the situation that came to light this week with Corbin Albert's social media. Basically, it came to light that U.S. women's national team midfielder Corbin Albert had liked and shared some content that was not supportive of the LGBTQ community. I'm putting this very broadly. Megan Rapinoe appeared to respond to this information with an Instagram story, asking if people with certain religious or political beliefs are making spaces safer or more inclusive for anybody. Lynn and I both reposted Megan's story in support of her statement and the questions that she was asking. Shortly thereafter, Corbin Albert released an apology, and I'm going to read it here. She said, I want to sincerely apologize for my actions on social media. Liking and sharing posts that are offensive, insensitive, and hurtful was immature and disrespectful, which was never my intent. I'm really disappointed in myself, and I'm deeply sorry for the hurt I have caused to my teammates, other players, fans, friends, and anyone who was offended. I truly believe that everyone should feel safe and respected everywhere and on all playing fields. I know my actions have not lived up to that, and for that, I sincerely apologize. It's an honor and a privilege to get to play this sport on the world stage, and I promise to do better. So I feel like we do have a couple of things to unpack here. First of all, Lynn, I did want us to just acknowledge that, like, we're both straight women in hetero relationships, so we are acknowledging that we don't have all the answers or, like, the only perspective here. With that said, you and I are both supportive of the LGBTQ community. We want our teammates, we want everybody who identifies in any way to be able to express themselves freely and live a happy, safe existence. And with that said, Lynn, you and I have both been teammates with somebody in the past who expressed similar views. And I think I wanted to ask you if the knowledge of things like this affect the team, affect the locker room, and affect your relationship with your teammate who may have expressed a different view.
Back then, we didn't know how to approach the situation, and we put soccer first. I feel like if I've learned anything, it's that there are some things that are just bigger than soccer. And one of them is human rights and making sure that people feel safe in their body and just safe in this world. So I think it is a moment for us to say, you know what, this topic, this is bigger than soccer. And at the same time, women's soccer has been a safe space for the LGBT community. And I think that it does affect the locker room a little bit. But again, I think this is bigger than the locker room.
I totally agree. I think that was one of my first reactions to this was it felt like it was being discussed from a football perspective in some ways. And I almost was like, football aside, as a human being, like I don't want to see intolerance being spread. And I think that to your point, Lynn, our women's soccer community is a safer place in a lot of ways than society at large. We have to support trans people, gay people, because those groups are marginalized in society. This space doesn't accept that, whether that's because of the women who have come before us, the people that we know and love this means so much to. It means so much to us. I think that in this particular community of women's soccer, tolerance and acceptance is the bare minimum. I think zooming out, making an apology is a solid first step. And I think you and I, in many cases, want to leave room for there to be growth and a change in behavior. But first and foremost, I don't accept intolerance or the exclusion of people on a human level. And I know we've had a lot of conversations about this, so I know that you agree.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it better myself. I completely agree. I think that any form of intolerance or hatred is not acceptable. And this is bigger than soccer, and we have to have a safe space for people.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. I'm glad that we could talk about it a little bit. We're going to get back to the podcast and our regularly scheduled in-game action. So today on the show, we are going to discuss the third weekend of NWSL action. Let's call this weekend, it's not over till it's over. There were a lot of late goals out there, Lynn. Everybody's staying up late. Those games were going really long, and there was a lot of action at the end. Speaking of which, Arsenal outlast Chelsea to win the Conti Cup Final. We are going to give you all the details of that game and give you our thoughts on the upcoming SheBelieves Cup. Plus, we're taking a call from Natalie A to discuss all these young players playing in professional environments. I think it's time for us to decide, Lynn, what's our alter ego for today, for this episode? I am saying that today we are the self-anointed greatest show women of women's soccer, because this weekend in the NWSL and abroad was a real freaking circus, you guys.
I agree. Everybody's doing tricks, juggling, literally, figuratively, the ball everywhere.
Yeah, it was quite a circus. So let's get into it. Early goals, late goals, circus goals, so many goals. The first game we're going to talk about is Kansas City Current versus Angel City. The Current won 4-2. Lynn, this game was like elephants walking on a tightrope. It was a real close one, closer than the scoreline may tell you.
Yeah, it was crazy. That's all I gotta say. It was a crazy game. I was like, okay, they're gonna smash them, and then they came back, and then they came back, and then they came back, and then VAR and all the things.
I know. Well, you did a great summary.
That's it.
Let's dive into that a little bit more. Then they came back. First of all, it was another sellout crowd for the second match in the new Kansas City Stadium, which is incredible. It seems like the energy there is like pretty off the chain.
Off the tightrope, if you will.
Oh my gosh, elephants falling everywhere.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Go.
Kansas City looks really good offensively. They had 2 first half goals, starting with Vanessa DiBernardo scoring in the 6th minute off a Chewinga pass. Really great combination in the box. Great finish. Vanessa DiBernardo having a great season so far. I've said it before and I'll say it again. She then follows up her goal with an assist crossing to Alexis Spanstra. Then Sid LaRue gets one back for Angel City. Now it's 2-1. Chewinga on Kansas City adds her own goal to make it 3-1 just moments later. And this is Chewinga's first NWSL goal and the first ever NWSL goal for a Malawian player.
Incredible. It was a banger too. I'm happy for her.
It was a banger. It was off of a misplayed ball out of the back. Kansas City took possession, played her forward. This is kind of also the start. Like there were several missed clearances, which we're going to talk more about, but a lot of capitalizing on goals from like poor clearances this weekend. Okay, now we're at 3-1 Kansas City. Then Madison Curry makes it 3-2 for Angel City. And then Rocky Rodriguez scores a goal that would have made it 3-3, but VAR flagged it for offside. Basically, it was like a scramble in the box off of a corner, and pretty unlucky for Rocky Rodriguez to be offside in what would have been a huge equalizer for Angel City. But most importantly, the VAR review was seemingly done out of a cooler on the side of the pitch.
Which was strange in itself. So bizarre.
Yeah, like it was literally the computer was in a white cooler and you'd think the ref was just going to like grab out a Michelob Ultra. Per our favorite beat reporter from Kansas City, PJ Green, this is part of an ad deal with the Current and the Cooler brand, who the Cooler brand doesn't sponsor us yet, so we're not going to name them, but we will name the Cooler. Can we name this VAR Cooler? Like, what would we nickname it?
I have no idea. Like, the whole thing is crazy.
I have to just say, our producer Jay wants me to call it the replay refrigerator. The replay refrigerator needs its own social media page to like make announcements and like show replays.
Oh my God, things like coming out of it.
Yeah. Yep.
I love
Exactly.
that.
So it's still 3-2. Kansas City's winning. Replay refrigerator comes up big for Kansas City, disallows Angel City's goal. And then Bia Zanerato, the Brazilian on Kansas City, adds an insurance goal off another poor clearance from the Angel City goalkeeper Anderson to kill the game off. Lynn, what do you make of these missed clearances? Like, do you attribute some of these to anything, or is it just kind of like early in the season?
I like to think it's early in the season. I don't know what else you would attribute it to. It's just so bizarre. Like Angel City's second goal and what would have been third goal were almost identical plays where it was like a scrum in the box, poor clearance, and it fell straight to an Angel City player. And then kind of all of Kansas City's, besides the first goals, were just poor clearances or bad passes around the back. So maybe it's people not knowing where other players are gonna be. But I just think it's just poor clearances. Just focus on putting your foot through the ball.
I know. I think especially like considering Kansas City, who are scoring so many goals, but like no offense, like also letting in some goals. Is there any reason for that? Like why? I saw this stat that they've like had the most goals happen in their games, like scored 11 and let in 7 or something. And it's just like they're such high scoring games. I don't really know why that is.
Yeah, we play Kansas City next on the 14th of April here. So obviously we're going to break that down a little bit more on a club level. But without having analyzed them deeply, I would say maybe it's their transition. Are they leaving a lot of room for spaces because they're so transitional and their ability to get back and defend?
Yeah, kind of like high risk, high reward. Like they're getting forward and scoring so many goals, but that means they're taking a lot of risk and leaving spaces open in the back.
Correct. That is just my first thought. I obviously have not, like I said, gone into it deeply, but between that and I do think it just poor clearances. It's early in the season. When I think of getting scored on corner kicks regularly, I think that's like an early in the season thing of how long have you had to work on corner kicks.
That's a good point, Lynn. But big picture, Kansas City is 3-0. Vlatko is undefeated. And this team doesn't look like they're slowing down, but there is an international break coming up. So that was my next question is, can international breaks be like a momentum killer for a club team that's doing really well? And I guess on the other hand, maybe they could be like a reset for club teams that aren't crushing it yet.
Yeah, well, what do you think? You've done it.
I think it's hard to say because I've always like traveled on international breaks. So it is sometimes I think hard to know what training is like when you're not there. But I do think it can serve as an opportunity for a team that isn't doing great yet to kind of like have 2 weeks straight to train and recalibrate. But at the same time, like I never like getting off of a game rhythm. I think it can be like a little bit disruptive. So I'll be curious to see when we get back.
Same. I think it also depends on how many internationals you have leaving. I think teams that have a lot of internationals it's going to just be harder. That's the reality of it. Not just U.S. internationals, but all internationals. So we'll see. I guess only time will tell.
Yeah. For sure. Okay, let's move on. Orlando and Chicago tied 1-1. This game.
Back and forth, but not like much. Like exciting,
balanced.
But not. Yeah. Oh, is there a balance beam? Is that
gymnastics?
You know, the ones where they put them on their shoulders and the lady flips in the air.
Oh, like a trapeze.
Yeah. They're a trapeze.
Okay. Orlando, Chicago, this was like a trapeze. It was a balancing act. But the top line here is that Mal Swanson is back scoring goals. It was Honestly, Linda like made me so happy to see her
I know.
create. She like started the play in her own half, and then she winds up finishing off the play with a goal, her first goal back from injury. She leveled it at 1-1, and her team earned a point. I wanted to just talk about really quickly, like how before she got the ball back to score, I don't know if you noticed this, she was like annoyed that she didn't get the ball yet.
I know. I saw it. She like was running, threw her hands up in the air and was like, "Why didn't I get the pass? Like, why didn't you pass it to me?" And then finally, when she put her head back down, the ball was at her feet.
Yeah.
And I like started giggling, actually. I was like, Mal, that's so funny. But way to be composed in that moment, and then slot into the back of the net.
I know. I laughed too. It was really, really funny and like so typical Mal, but then she just like gets it, scores anyway. And to just see her have like that moment of like pure joy where she kind of looked up and threw her arms up and was so happy. It's so great to come back from injury and play minutes, but it's so rewarding to finally get that first goal back. So I wanted to ask you what it feels like to score that first goal after being injured and out for a long time.
Oh, it's the best feeling in the world. You know, I can't speak for other positions. I'm going to assume like if you were injured and you're a midfielder, maybe an assist that feels great. Or if like you're a defensive player, your first like slide tackle. But as a forward, you get paid to score goals and all you want to do is score goals. So you can have the best game ever and not score. But finally scoring after not doing something for so long, it's just like all the hard work I've done is paid off. You just never know when another goal is going to come. So you just soak it all up. I'm really happy for her. I'm excited for her. You could tell how happy she was by throwing her arms in the air. And the smile on her face, I think, says it all.
I know. I totally agree. I do love Mal, and I am really happy for her. So that was Orlando, Chicago. Game was 1-1. Chicago, honestly, still crushing it. Still up there near the top of the table. Lynn, I wanted to ask you to tell us, because I know you watched this one, about the Portland-Louisville game.
Yeah, Portland-Louisville. Portland, it was tied 2-2. They are circus act here.
Yeah, what was this game like?
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize there were so many like ties and low-scoring games besides Kansas City winning.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say they are contortionists.
Oh, I think I agree. This game was the contortionist game because Portland was in like kind of a tight spot, Lynn, but then they got out of it. They bent themselves over backwards and they got out of their little tight spot. How do you like that?
I liked it. And then Portland found themselves down in the first 6 minutes from 2 goals from Louisville forward Uchenna Kanu. The fastest brace ever scored in NWSL history, by the way. So congrats to her.
Wow.
And then Portland in the 52nd minute, Morgan Weaver slid a beautiful ball to the far post. And then the game is on. So you're like, it's 2-1. Portland
scrambling to get another goal.
There was a moment in the game where it's just a picture now. I'm sure you can find it. But Becky scolds Raylan Turner. You could just see like venom in Becky's eyes. I felt like I was getting scolded through the screen. And I was like, I just never want to be on the end of one of those looks. And then in the 99th minute, Sam Coffey found herself at the top of the box, took a touch, and then beautiful strike against the equalizer, and then the game ends 2-2. So
Louisville are undefeated. They do have 3 straight ties, but tough to beat. Louisville, you know what they say? Louisville's tough to beat.
I've always said that. But I did see that Abby Erceg did an interview and said, we just don't know how to win yet, which was an interesting thing to say, I think.
That is an interesting thing to say. I hadn't seen that, but I get what she means. Like, I think your team has to like find ways to win, and then that becomes part of your identity. So I guess we'll see when Louisville figures that one out.
Yeah, because they clearly can score some goals. They've been up, I believe, in every single game. And it's just being able to finish it out.
Okay, so we don't have Becky this week, so we can kind of talk in secret. Becky, skip forward if you're listening to this, but what's going on with Portland, Lynn? Like, they have lost 2 games and drawn a game. Lynn, you heard something about where their coach watches the game?
Yeah, so I was watching their second game, which would have been, or was it our game? I was probably watching our game against Portland, which would have been their second game, our first game. They showed him in the box, up in the stands. And I just thought that was very interesting. They touched on it, said he likes to see the game from that viewpoint and then will come down at some point in the game. And so he's just trusting his assistant coaches out there to get the message across. I'm not saying that that is the reason why they're losing. I have no idea. I just thought it was an interesting point. I've never seen a coach do that before.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that Portland at times looks very scary. I think at times they look shaky. I don't know if it's a lack of confidence. I don't really know what's going on there.
I know. I don't either. I did ask Becky about it last week, and she was just saying that they're trying to focus on like growth week to week, which makes total sense. And this is growth. I mean, considering that they were down 2-0 in the first 6 minutes of the game, and then they fought back and got a point really late, this definitely is growth. I think there are some areas where the defense still needs to be a little bit tightened up. And then thinking offensively for them, they can score so many goals. Like they have Sophia Smith, they have Janine Becky. Like when Soph is involved, they score. So I think it's just kind of like again, it's early in the season, but they are only on 1 point, and that's not something that we expect to see from Portland. So I'm sure we'll hear more about this from Becky.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. I think that they're going to be fine. It is just very interesting. I don't think they have that much turnover in their roster. So I think maybe they just have to get it together.
The North Carolina Courage beat Gotham 1-0. Gotham conceded a goal to Brianna Pinto in the 44th minute, and then they couldn't get their own shot on target. They had 15 total shots, none of them on target. They are missing Lynn Williams out there. It was a tough and hard-fought loss. Kind of like, Lynn, I'm not going to make you describe your own team's loss, kind of like a ring toss when you're trying to toss that ring on all those glass bottles and it just never really gets on there.
Remember that time I did that and I actually got it on the bottle and got a huge giant llama?
Yeah, and then you like brought it home and we like lived with it.
Yeah.
What did we name the llama?
Oh, probably like Lami, which was so lame.
I like don't really remember what we named it. I just remember it was like huge and I was kind of like, Lynn, like we don't live here permanently. Like, why did you bring this junk home?
I don't think that you named it at all because you wanted it gone so badly.
Yeah, I was like, this is gross, like circus junk.
You guys, I literally won this giant llama and walked around the fair with it all day after. Sam, I threw a teeny tiny bottle cap onto thousands of bottles and I was shocked. The lady was shocked.
The lady was pissed.
The lady was pissed. She did not want to give me that llama. And I was like, give it to me.
I'm taking it.
And I'm putting it in our home.
Rest in peace, Lami. Lynn, how does it feel supporting the team from afar? Like you're injured. You had to watch them lose. Like what's that like?
Any injury, anytime you're away from home, anytime you're not able to play on the field, I think it's tough. All you want to do is to be able to like help in some kind of way. But I think that everybody feels that way if you're on the field, if you're injured, if you're not. You know, it's tough. I feel like watching the game, we actually possessed a lot, especially in the first half. I felt like we controlled the game. We just didn't get a shot off. Like I think that there was one shot by Yasmin Ryan where it just rattled the post. I think that if that goes in, maybe it changes the game. But I think that there are moments where we're possessing the ball, we're controlling the game, but possession for a purpose. And I think there's a fine line between being patient and just having to go for it. So I think we're early in the season trying to find that balance right now, but I think we're going to get there.
Yeah, well, not only is your team missing you and Rose Lavelle, but we also just learned that Midge Purse tore her ACL and will be out for the rest of the season and for the Olympics. She also had missed last year's World Cup with an injury. So this is just like...
I know, it's terrible.
So heartbreaking for Midge, like more devastating than I can even imagine. Lynn, have you gotten a chance to see her or speak with her about it at all?
No, she hasn't come in. She sent us a message saying, thank you so much for the support. Millions of people on our team, and then once the news broke, have sent her messages. I'm sure she feels very overwhelmed, but also love and support. But yeah, it's devastating. You never want to see that, especially during this time. You know, Olympics, World Cups, they only come every 4 years, and I just feel for her. I really do. It's terrible. Another ACL, which you just never want to see.
I know. It's like, it's just one of those things where we all saw her go down and we were all kind of like crossing our fingers that this wasn't it. And then to hear the announcement was, I think, just brutal. Like like this community is so close knit. And I think not only is Midge our friend and our teammate, but like everybody we feel so connected to everybody. We know how much it means. Like, we know how much making an Olympics roster would mean to Midge. And knowing that she's not even going to have that chance this year is like, we feel that a little bit for her. And I think the fans do as well. She's like a beloved player. And the ACLs, we talk about it all the time, and we should keep talking about it because it's like, it's just so horrible to see it keep happening. I know that Midge will come back stronger, but I really do feel for her. A cool moment from this Courage Gotham game. Before the game, the Courage honored Caroline, the MVP from last season, Brazilian forward. She was in tears. She was so emotional about getting recognized in this ceremony. I think partly because she is still recovering from an ACL injury. I imagine it's been really difficult for her to be out. And I think maybe feeling the emotion of being recognized for this huge accomplishment. It was like gut-wrenching to see Caroline emotional, but I think an incredible celebration of her. And I love that the North Carolina Courage is able to do things like this season. I feel like they're really taking this intentional approach towards recognizing current and former players. And I like really love that from them.
I do too. I think that it was such a sweet moment, but I think that something, like you said, her being so emotional that just stood out to me is that we're human. I think that a lot of the times when we talk about athletes, it's just, oh, how come they did this? How come they did that? And it's just getting picked apart for good or bad. But at the core of everything is we are human. We want to be out there playing to the best of our ability. So having something like an ACL injury or any injury keep you out from that is just devastating to see and hear. So I'm happy that she got her moment to shine, because we obviously won't see her on the field for a little bit. So it's really cool to see her right now in this moment.
I know. I was so happy for Caroline. Okay, last up, Lynn, we had the long-awaited Bay FC home opener. Kind of like the main event at the Circus, but unfortunately for Bay FC, the tent got a little bit deflated and they lost.
Oh my gosh.
Their hopes were dashed by Houston.
Boom, roasted.
With a super late Havana Solon goal in the 90th plus 10 minute of injury time.
Stoppage time.
So in positive news for Bay, there were 18,000 fans. That's the largest Bay Area women's soccer crowd in history. Dana Castellanos started it off on an Oshuala deflection into the underside of the crossbar. That was Bay up 1-0. Then for Houston, Diana Ordonez equalizes off a header. And then the 82nd minute rolls around. It's 1-1, and 3 more goals get scored in that last bit of the game plus stoppage time. So Ordonez takes a penalty after handball in the box. It's saved, but then she scores the rebound. Now it's 2-1 Houston. Then for Bay, Kundananji in the 3rd minute of stoppage time does it herself. She had subbed on in the 62nd minute, and she was the player that got that huge transfer fee. She takes on a player, gently lays it into the side corner of the net from 30 yards out. Now it's 2-2, and Bay, they've got that home crowd. They feel like they've saved a point. But in this endless 9 minutes of injury time on the clock, and what did we say this week was, Lynn? It's not over until it's over. At the 100th minute, past the allotted stoppage time off of a poor clearance, Havana Solon scores the winner. And Houston, again, dashes the hopes of the 18,000 fans at Bay FC.
Whew.
Yeah.
Take a breath.
So much stoppage time, Lynn.
Too much stoppage time, I would say.
Well, that's our big question of the week. So in the NWSL this weekend, 8 minutes of second half stoppage time was the least amount of stoppage time. That was in the Gotham Courage game. Kansas City versus Angel City had 15 minutes of stoppage time. All this added time isn't like exclusively due to VAR reviews, but there were several lengthy VAR reviews adding several minutes to many of these matches in a trend that we've like seen across the game globally in the past couple of years. So after the Orlando-Chicago match, during which there was a 7-minute VAR review, Chicago's head coach Lauren Donaldson said, if it takes that long to make a damn decision, then there's no decision. Love that little feistiness thrown in there. A little damn never hurt anybody.
No, it didn't.
Okay, so this is our Olipop gut check of the week, Lynn. This is brought to you by our very good friends at Olipop, who we love so much. So if a VAR check takes 7 minutes, considering that an overturned call on VAR needs to be a clear and obvious error, should the call on the field just stand if it's taking this long? Lynn, what do you think? I'm going to crack open my old can here.
Do it. No, I think that there is something happening. I think when you are adding that much time on, it is affecting the game in a negative way. You know, we've all seen games where there's been 10, 15 minutes of added time for something like a one-off thing. But for every single game, having 10, 15 minutes of extra time, that is literally if you were going into overtime. Like that's the same amount of time if you were going into overtime. I think especially when you are considering that this season is longer, there are games that are continuing to be added. We talk about infrastructure. The game has to grow with the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
All of these minutes add up over the period of a season. And 7 minutes, I saw in one of the games, it took like 7 minutes for somebody to get a yellow card. And I was like, if it's taking that long and all we're seeing is a yellow, like what is going on? Well, it should be either a red or just get on with it.
That's like kind of my point. Like, I think that if you're hemming and hawing at the replay refrigerator for 7 minutes, then it's not obvious. It's not a clear and obvious call. So you have to, at a certain point in time, just be like, the call I made on the field was what I made on the field. Unless something is literally punching me in the face that I'm wrong, it has to just stand. We can't keep like having there be all this stoppage time.
Yeah. At the beginning of this season, we had a meeting with FIFA Pro and they were explaining to us, because obviously VAR was new to us last year. So we were going over kind of the stats of how many calls they got right, how many calls they got wrong. They acknowledged that they needed to be better at VAR and that they didn't do a great job last year. And it feels like they're trying to correct that this year, but it's almost an overcorrection in my opinion. It's too long. You're standing around for too long. I couldn't imagine running 10, 11, 12K and then having to look up and saying, oh my gosh, I have 15 more minutes of this.
I know. I do appreciate like the transparency from the refs that they're trying to like rectify an overall error from last year. But I think it's a lot. So our gut check is there's got to be some kind of a time limit over there. That replay refrigerator, just have a little clock going. If we're up at like 3-4 minutes, time to play on, girls. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or send the ref to the monitor immediately. I think that there are some times where they're standing around waiting for VAR to check it upstairs and just immediately send them over. Just like go look at it now. Like there's 3-4 minutes having just VAR check it and then another 4 minutes of the center ref looking at it. So,
all right. Well, that's our Olipop gut check of the week. Brought to you all by our friends at Olipop. Let's hop over to England, Lynn, where I literally just hopped back from.
Hippity hoppity.
Yeah, like the Easter Bunny. This Sunday was the WSL League Cup Final, a.k.a. the Conti Cup, a.k.a. its very own Circus over there, Lynn. It was a tense one.
Swallowing swords.
Yep. Love that.
Oh.
Where you're kind of like...
That like makes me feel ill.
Yeah. So it was Arsenal versus Chelsea. Arsenal won last year, also over Chelsea. And just as a reminder, Arsenal are basically out of the title race in the WSL, barring a huge misstep by both Chelsea and Man City. They're behind by a few points. So this was kind of Arsenal's last chance at some sort of silverware this season. Arsenal have some amazing players like Leah Williamson, Alessia Russo, Viviane Miedema, Beth Mead, Caitlin Ford, and our very own American Emily Fox, to name a few. I heard that Emily Fox's cheer at Arsenal is Emily Fox from America. Do you like that?
Can you do it twice in a row? You
Emily Fox from America. Whoa, Emily Fox from America. Ooh. Lynn Williams from Fresno. Woo.
Sam Mewis from Boston.
It's really good. I think it can very easily apply to us.
Let's just continue that on for everybody.
Freaking love it. Okay, so anyways, Arsenal is stacked. Just pardon our little interruption there. Obviously, Chelsea is also stacked with players like Lauren James, Erin Cuthbert, my girl Sam Kerr, and American Katarina Macario, amongst many others. Chelsea's led by future U.S. Women's National Team manager Emma Hayes. We've talked about all these players. We've talked a lot about Emma Hayes. This is a huge matchup. 2 of the top 3 teams in the WSL playing for a trophy. There's a ton on the line, and it is also Emma Hayes' last season after 12 years at Chelsea. So this was her chance for the quadruple. That would have been this cup, the League Cup, Conti Cup. That's 1. the FA Cup, Champions League, which Chelsea are still in, and the WSL League title. They did not win the Conti Cup, but she could still win a treble, which would be pretty freaking cool. Lynn, I feel like Arsenal and Chelsea are like so familiar. It's always down to the wire with them. Like when there's a trophy on the line and you're playing a really familiar opponent, like how do you approach that?
It reminds me of North Carolina, Chicago when we played in North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Every time we would play Chicago, it was like they had our number. They had us in their back pocket, and then we would get to playoffs and we would crush it. I think that there is some mentality, some place you have to tap into when it comes to a title on the line, and kind of like all that you know about them goes out the window. It's this one game. You focus on this one game and you put everything into it.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of is the Miracle movie, the hockey movie.
Yeah.
When the coach is like 9 times out of 10, they might beat us, but not today. And you just literally have to be like, not that these teams were mismatched, but that like anything could happen on any given day when both teams are so quality and they're so familiar with each other.
Yeah, you almost have to put everything you know about them out of your brain because this moment is a new moment.
Totally.
Yeah.
So let's get into the game a little bit. It was pretty cagey, like not a ton of opportunities. Like there were 2 great teams, but at the end of regular time, something really horrible happened. Arsenal's Frida Manum collapsed on the pitch without contact, and paramedics were rushed onto the field to treat her. We still don't know exactly what happened, but the latest update we've heard is that she's doing okay. This is Monday afternoon that we're taping, so hopefully there is another positive update tonight or tomorrow morning. But so far we've heard that she's conscious, talking, and in a stable condition while they continue to monitor her. So all of our best to Frida from here at the women's game and from Good Vibes. We hope that she is totally okay and our thoughts are with her.
I completely agree. I obviously didn't see it, but that's obviously something that's super traumatic and worrisome. And so we just wish her all the best.
Moving into extra time, it was 0-0 at the end of regulation. The first period goes by, and you could tell like exhaustion is setting in. Like people are kind of just clearing it out. Chances are being kicked over the goal. Like a few calf cramps were starting to happen out there. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this is a long one. So we get into the second 15-minute period, still pretty cagey. It's starting to be like, are we going into PKs? And then Stina Blackstenius gets the ball in the center of the box with a bunch of defenders on her. She turns and fires it. It bounces off the hands of Chelsea keeper Hannah Hampton and goes into the net. So Arsenal win the Conti Cup, and that's Emily Fox's first trophy with the club.
Emily Fox from America. Oh. Congrats, Arsenal.
Then a little bit more drama ensues. You can go and watch this video of the handshake where it appears that Emma Hayes pushes Arsenal manager Jonas Eidevall when they go to shake hands after the game. Obviously, both managers spoke about it after the game, and like, we don't know exactly what may or may not have happened, but we're just going to report a couple of the things that were reported on. One, Emma Hayes cited Eidevall's, quote, male aggression, saying, fronting up or squaring up to a player is something that's unacceptable. I've never been booked in 12 years of my career, but I think there's a way to behave on the touchline. He received a yellow card, but perhaps should have been more. And she said she's referring to a few instances, including when he, quote, fronted up to a player, Aaron Cuthbert, on the touchline. Eidevall seemed to think that the spat was over the number of balls on the sideline. So you can play with a single ball to get the ball back on the field when it goes out of bounds, or you can play with multiple balls. So basically the decision was made before the game that they were going to play with just one ball and that you couldn't go quickly grab another one when it goes out of bounds. But at the end of the game, when Chelsea was down and they wanted a quick throw in, that's when Eidevall was involved with something with Aaron Cuthbert. Again, we don't know. Emma said we should not blow it up. And I'm sure when he is calm, we can have a conversation. It is not the first time he has been told, but it should not be a massive story. So maybe we leave it at that and we move on to the rest of the WSL that played their regular league games throughout the rest of the weekend. I was able to watch Man City play Liverpool. Man City-Liverpool game was kind of like I'm going to call this the world's strongest Man City competition. Man City is playing really well right now. They took on Liverpool, and this game was for critical points because they were still neck and neck with Chelsea for top of the league. The game finished 4-1. There were goals from Lauren Hemp, Jess Park, and then 2 Bunny Shaw goals. One of those was such a banger. And so City now are still on this tight race at the top with Chelsea, and every goal is helping them with goal differential. One thing I wanted to note is that Chloe Kelly, of Man City forward and Lioness legend who scored the game-winning goal in the Euros 2022, she didn't start for the fourth game in a row. And I'm so interested in this. I don't know if she's injured because she did sub on yesterday, but I'm just noticing that she's not starting, and I'm curious as to why and if there's something else going on there.
Yeah, I obviously don't know much about Chloe, haven't played with her, but you have. So what are some of the things that you remember about her?
I loved being Chloe Kelly's teammate. It was both of our first year at Man City. I feel like for her and for her family and her community, like making Man City was, to anybody, it would be an incredible accomplishment. But I feel like what I saw from Chloe was that she was the kind of player who just wanted opportunities to prove herself. She had done so well in the league the year before, and then she gets this kind of like big move to Man City, and it was just this like really important like sight of accomplishment for her, and she continued proving herself. She was scoring all these goals. She's on the Lionesses. She scores the tournament winner in the Euro finals, and I just imagine that all these huge things keep happening to her and for her, and I feel so happy for her because I kind of identify with her as somebody who maybe like comes from a small town and really has a lot of resources at home, like building them up and helping them achieve their dreams. So then I feel like now to see her not starting for whatever reason, I empathize with her. I feel like that must be hard because she really is just the kind of player who always wants that chance to prove herself.
Yeah, I think when your role changes, it's very difficult pill to swallow sometimes, especially when it goes from starting to not starting. But I think that there's an opportunity here for her to show that she is a player who can come on and change the game and that they need her on the field. So I obviously don't know what's going on either. Yeah. I don't know her personally, but you do. But we obviously wish her all the best. And again, we'll see what happens.
I know. And I'm rooting for Man City.
Okay.
In terms of this title race, Chelsea are still in it. They now have this game in hand, and Man City are 1 goal clear on goal differential. So I feel like we're reporting on this every week, and it's just going back and forth and getting so tight and staying so tight. But Chelsea are also still in the FA Cup, so they'll play Man United in the semifinal after the international break on April 14th. And they are also still in Champions League, which I wanted to bring up in this last bit of our little European news section, which is really just Chelsea and all the tournaments that they're in. The Champions League semifinals are set. Chelsea versus Barcelona and Lyon versus PSG. We will get leg 1 on April 20th. Both of these games should be crazy tense and really exciting. Barcelona are the defending champions, so Chelsea's definitely going to have like a little bone to pick with them. Barcelona knocked Chelsea out last year and then went on to win. That other game, Lyon versus PSG, will also see Lindsay Horan play for Lyon against her former club, PSG, and fellow SheBelieves teammates Corbin Albert and Eva Gaetino, who's a first-time call-up going into camp for SheBelieves. Coming up this weekend, we have SheBelieves Cup. It is 4 total matches. There's like 2 semifinals this Saturday, and then the winners will play each other in the final on Tuesday, and then the losers will also play each other in a third place / consolation game. Lynn, in terms of SheBelieves, like, what's the attitude from the team? Like, how much does SheBelieves matter? Like, why do we care about SheBelieves?
Well, every game matters. As we get closer to the Olympics, I think it's solidifying opponents, not solidifying opponents, but seeing how we match up against different opponents. Also, I think solidifying rosters. I think there's some players that they have to see, some players that they know what they bring, and seeing how they connect, the connection between the two of them, and then just building on top of, at least from a U.S. perspective, building on what we have done in these past tournaments with Gold Cup and prior. So I think everybody should care. They should also care because it's just going to be fun, exciting games to watch.
I know it is. SheBelieves has like always been really good competition. I remember when Jill was coaching the team, she said something one time like, I want to bring these really competitive games here domestically, like for our fans and our community to see like the highest level of games. And I actually feel like SheBelieves as like a tournament setting has done a good job of that, of like bringing intense, high quality opponents to the US for us to play here. SheBelieves over the years has like grown in prominence, I think. And I think the name is like a little bit lols, but I think in terms of like the competition, it's always a really good tournament.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we can maybe retouch on the name one day, but I also think it's different bringing a tournament to the United States instead of just friendlies. I think when you are playing friendlies every sometimes you play a team. For people who don't know, you play a team and then usually you get to play them again. So you correct all the mistakes maybe you made in the first game, or you sharpen up something. Well, in a tournament style, it's not like that. You play one team and then you're playing a whole different team. So sometimes you just have to forget what happened with that team because it doesn't serve you with the next game, but sometimes it does. So just watching them navigate that is really exciting.
Yeah, so coming up first, the U.S. will play Japan on Saturday at 12:30, and matches in this tournament are going to be split across TNT, Max, and Peacock. So look for our handy little graphic towards the end of the week to help you out with all of the action this weekend. You can find that by following us on social media at Women's Game MIB. Super exciting that Mal Swanson and Katarina Macario are back with the U.S. roster for the first time since they've both been injured. But Lynn, do you have any other like overarching thoughts on this U.S. roster?
Again, it's a young midfield. Seeing how they come together, seeing how they click, watching them have a run of the team there. Obviously, Mal and Kat are back from injury, seeing how they mesh back with the team. And I just think it's going to be exciting to watch. I think that there's a lot of question marks, a lot of still very, not only young in age, but young in experience for the national team. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on it?
I do. I mean, I think that, like you said, it's such an important time for the Olympics selection process. There are a lot of young players, and something I have been leaning very heavily on is that what's most important about an Olympics roster is a balance of young players and players with leadership experience. But something else is like, if you're versatile on an 18-person roster, you become so much more valuable. I think because we know anything can happen in a tournament, recognizing players who can play multiple positions is something that Emma and Twyla will be probably looking at closely. So I'm excited to see that. Following up on that game, Canada is playing Brazil Saturday at 3:30. The U.S. saw both of these teams in Gold Cup. Lynn, do you think there is like, I'm kind of feeling like the Canada game, the rain game, like we didn't really see a real game against Canada. Would you rather face, if we can beat Japan, would you rather face one of these teams, or do they both feel like tough opponents for the U.S.?
I think they're both tough opponents. I think that we have seen Brazil a couple more times than we have Canada in recent games. But at the same time, like you said, we haven't really faced Canada because of the weird mud rain game. And maybe that is something that we need to see to prepare ourselves to go into this Olympics. I don't really know. I don't think there's one that I'm like, ooh, I'm super excited, but I also don't know if there's one that I'm like nervous about. I will say that a Canada-US game is always exciting. So we'll see.
Yeah, let's just hope the sun is out on that day.
Yes.
There is so much more to get into about SheBelieves, but Raj and I are releasing a SheBelieves preview pod that is going to drop tomorrow. That's Wednesday, right here on this podcast feed. And we're going to get more into all the other teams, more into the U.S. roster. So make sure to stay tuned right here for that. Let's quickly go to our inbox. We got an email from Natalie A. that asks, how do you guys feel about teenagers playing professional soccer? Do you think teenagers are ready for the responsibility of being a professional athlete on such a large stage, especially in this age of social media? That's a good question, Lynn. What do you think?
Oh, we can't say they're not ready if they are able to perform and that that's something that they feel and their family feels is right for them. I first want to say that. I do think that there is a responsibility to make sure that they have the support and infrastructure, again, to make sure that they're not only being the best player out of the field, but like being safe as their bodies are still growing. And I think that in a time right now where we're seeing so much injuries of women who have been playing soccer for so long and should, I would assume, know their bodies and know their gym plans and all that stuff, like, are we protecting teenagers as well in that space?
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think that right now there's so much that comes for these young players with going pro. And so just like you said, the resources necessary to protect them, to make sure that they are in the gym in the right way and getting nutrition in the right way and feeling safe and comfortable, but then also getting like media training and not just having people be like, okay, you're in the locker room now. You're basically a 30-year-old woman. Like, especially for these really, really young players, 15, 14 years old, they need a lot of resources and support around them. So as we always say, as the game grows and changes, just making sure that the infrastructure in place is also being thoughtful and is growing and changing with the game. Natalie A., I really loved that question. I picked it out myself. So if you have a question for us, write to us at womensgamemib@menandblazers.com.
Or call us at 855-611-4050.
Lynn, can you believe that this is the end of the episode? I am so sad, and I'm going to miss you so much. But as we always do here on Good Vibes, we want to leave our listeners with one good vibe for the day. Lynn, do you have one today?
I feel like all of mine have been revolving around food, but I'm going to say another food one. I made myself a banana bread chocolate chip cake. The only reason why I say it's a cake is because it was in a cake pan because I didn't have a bread loaf. And that little thing made me happy. So I just think that if you just do something that makes you happy, especially right now. I thought it was going to be spring and then it's still cold outside. So that little piece of chocolate chip banana bread made me happy. So just do that.
Well, I freaking love that, Lynn. My good vibe is I got home from a trip today. Shout out to my neighbors who are doing construction on their house.
Shout out to your neighbors for making their lives better by doing the construction on their house.
All right. Are you guys subscribed yet? Because if not, subscribe right now, you little muffin butt. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts and YouTube and Instagram at Women's Game MIB. This week on Thursday, we have an interview with Denise O'Sullivan, and we talk about how much it means for her to captain the Courage, and we relive some glory days at North Carolina. Lynn, you are going to want to listen to that one. You can hear that episode this Thursday on the podcast feed. And don't forget, tomorrow, SheBelieves Preview Pod with none other than Roger Bennett. It's also going to be on this feed. All right, everybody, that's it from us.
Goodbye. I'm Lynn.
And I'm Sam Mewis. And this is Good Vibes FC, the podcast that's like a human pyramid because it's an incredible feat of human excellence every damn week.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's crazy.
Okay, I'll text you in 5 minutes. Bye.
Bye.